Hi, in today's video we will discuss about generic para 4 certification application exclusivity or patent challenge generic application exclusivity in US. There are different types of para generic applications in US. First is para 1 certification generic application in which generic applicant certifies to US FDA that there are no Orange Book listed patent related to innovator product. In that case, FDA may immediately approve the generic application if all the required data is submitted. Second is Para 2 certification generic application in which applicant certifies to FDA that all Orange Book listed patents related to innovator product have expired. So in that case also no issue. FDA may immediately approve the generic application if all the required data is submitted. Next is Para 3 certification generic application in which generic applicant certifies to FDA that Orange Book listed patent related to innovator product have yet not expired, but he will market the generic application after expiry of those listed patents. In that case, FDA will approve the generic application after expiry of those listed patents related to the innovative product if all the required data is submitted by generic applicant. So in Para 3 certification, generic application will be approved after expiry of all the Orange Book listed patents, and generic applicant agrees that he will market the generic product after expiry of the Orange Book listed patents. Next is Para 4 certification generic application or patent challenge generic application. In this case, the generic applicant certifies to US FDA that Orange Book listed patents related to innovator product have yet not expired, but applicant is challenging those listed patents because applicant believes that those listed patents are either invalid or maybe my product are not infringing those patents, or maybe those patents are not enforceable. So in that case, the case goes to the court. Now patent holder may sue or file the court case against the generic applicant. So in that case, court will finally decide whether those listed patent in Orange Book are whether they are valid or invalid, enforceable or not enforceable, or whether the generic product is infringing those patents or not infringing. So FDA will approve the generic Para 4 certification application after final court decision which is in favor of generic applicant. Then in that case FDA will approve the Para 4 generic application. And if that Para 4 generic application is approved, then applicant will get 180 days of exclusivity, which is called 180 days Para 4 generic exclusivity. We'll talk in detail about this Para 4 generic application process in detail in next slide. So generic Para 4 certification is a long journey, long process which starts with the Para 4 application filing by generic applicant. Generic applicant in his application certifies to US FDA that applicant is challenging the Orange Book listed patent which are still not expired, they are still existing, but the generic applicant is challenging those patents because applicant believes that my generic product is not infringing those listed patents, or maybe those listed patents are invalid, or maybe those listed patents are not enforceable or unenforceable. So immediately after filing the para 4 certified generic application, generic applicant within 20 days of filing of application with FDA sends notice to innovator patent holder company that he has filed para 4 application with US FDA and he is challenging the Orange Book listed patents. So in that case, innovator holder company or patent holder company may within 45 days of receipt of notice may file the court case against generic applicant. But if no court case is filed within 45 days by patent holder, then in that case, FDA will review the generic application and may approve the generic application. And there will be no stay against approval of generic application. But if court case is filed by innovator patent holder company within 45 days of notice, then FDA will grant 30 months stay on generic approval. For next 30 months, FDA will not approve any generic product and 30 months stay will be there. Now the court will decide. Now the case goes to the court. Court will now decide whether these Orange Book listed patents, whether they are infringed by generic product or not infringed by generic product, or whether they are valid or invalid, or whether they are enforceable or not enforceable. So court will finally decide. If court final decision is in favor of generic applicant, court says that those products are either not infringed by generic product or they are invalid or maybe they are not enforceable, then this court decision in favor of generic applicant, on receipt of this court order, FDA will review the generic application and will approve the generic para 4 application. And generic applicant now will get 180 days of exclusivity on approval of para 4 generic application. But if court decision is against generic applicant, court says that patents are infringed, they are still valid, they are enforceable. So this is the decision against generic applicant. So in that case, if the decision of the court is against generic applicant, then generic applicant will need to change the generic application to para 3 certification, which will be approved by FDA after expiry of Orange Book listed patents. So in what happened in para 3? Para 3 is basically the applicant, generic applicant says that there are Orange Book listed patent, they are still unexpired and I will market the product after expiry of those patents. So FDA will approve the product, generic product under para 3 certification after expiry of Orange Book listed patents. But in case of para 3 certified generic application, there will be no 180-day exclusivity for para 3 generic application. Also, there is no 180-day exclusivity for para 1 or para 2 generic application. So para 4 certified generic application only are entitled to 180 days of generic exclusivity. If the first para 4 certified generic application which is successful, in which court has decided that the generic product is not infringing the patent listed in the Orange Book, or maybe patents are invalid or not enforceable. So in that case, that's the first successful para 4 generic applicant is entitled to 180-day exclusivity. And during this 180-day exclusivity, the generic company will earn huge revenues during these 180 days, because during this period, this is the only generic available in the market, and there are only one branded and one generic product in the market. So usually the generic product is priced slightly lower than the branded product. So many of the patients who are on the branded product, they will shift to the less costlier generic product, and this generic product will get lot of market share of the branded product. But after 6 months or 180 days, when the generic exclusivity ends, then many generic will come in the market, and those generic then will take the first generic market share. So the market share of this generic after 180 days will go down. So during this 6 month or 180 days, this during this exclusivity, the generic will earn huge revenues. So next is the generic para 4 applicant has certain responsibilities to notify and to submit certain information to USFDA. And these are: the generic applicant has to submit the certificate of providing notice to patent holder on sending the notice that he is filing para 4 application and challenging the patent. Next is the generic applicant has to submit the document of receipt of notice by patent holder within 30 days of receipt of notice. Next is the generic applicant has to inform FDA on court case filing, whether court case has been filed or has not been filed, whether innovator is filing the case or not filing the case within 14 days after 45 days period lapse. Means within 45 days of notice, the innovator has to file the court case. So after end of those 45 days, within next 14 days, the generic applicant has to notify the FDA whether court case has been filed or not filed. And also generic applicant has to inform the FDA that about the when the litigation starts, when the court case starts, when the hearing starts in the court. He has to inform about that also to FDA. And finally, the generic applicant has to inform the FDA about final court decision when within 14 days of court decision. So that's all in today's discussion. Thank you very much.